Alright, so welcome back to Dominion Nocturne, What's in the Box, or What's in My Box. If you've been watching all my videos, it's my box. So, anyway, part 5, and so like I said, if, in other videos, if this is the first one you're watching, and you didn't watch part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, and that you're just and this is part 5, and this is the first one you've watched, then go back and watch part 1 first, before you watch part 5. Okay? This is part 5. Alright. So, let's get started. Alright, so, now that since we've gone over some of the really wonky cards in the game that deal with a lot of cards that aren't in the supply, let's get to the more basic cards of Dominion. At least as far as basic can go, since there are night cards too. Alright, so we got the Druid. And this is another card that works with boons. So you get a buy. You receive one of the set-aside boons, leaving it there. And then, as part of the setup, you set aside the top 3 boons face up. And so that's what that means. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to have 3 boons that are set aside from the rest of the boon pile. And this card will only work with those 3 boons that you set aside. So that's what that means. You're just going to receive one of the set-aside boons, but only one of the 3, and you won't have access to any of the other boons. So if you don't have any other cards in the game that give you boons, then that means in that course of the game you're only going to end up using 3 boons, which I think is actually kind of cool, because maybe the reason why you don't like boons that much is because there's so many of them. But only having 3 to deal with is a whole lot easier, perhaps. So I like that. That's pretty cool. All right, so then we have the Monastery. This is actually really useful too. So for each card you've gained this turn, you may trash a card from your hand or a copper you have in play. That is actually pretty cool, because during the night phase, I really thought that one through, because during the night phase, your coppers probably won't be sitting in your hand, especially in the beginning of the game. So this gives you an opportunity to perhaps trash a copper you have in play during your night phase. That is pretty cool. I like that a lot. Alright, then we've got the Faithful Hound. Alright, so this is a reaction, and it's the only reaction in the game. So you get +2 cards. When you discard this other than during the cleanup, you may set it aside and put it into your hand at the end of turn. So it's similar to the Owl that I created, and that's where I came up with the whole idea for Owl, was because of this card anyway. So, yeah, you set it aside and put it back into your hand at the end of turn instead of discarding it. So it's like your Faithful Hound. He's faithful, very faithful. He didn't go away. He didn't run off somewhere. Then we've got the Guardian. Now this is a version of a reaction, but it's not considered a reaction. But when you think about it, it's very similar to a moat. Alright, so and this is a night duration, so you do this during your night phase. Until your next turn, when another player plays an attack card, it doesn't affect you, and at the start of your next turn, +1 treasure. There's a card very similar to this, even closer than this. It's called Lighthouse, and it's in the Seaside expansion. The only difference is this one is during your night phase. So you don't do this during your action phase, you do it during your night phase. So that's kind of interesting. But in reality, it's not much different from Lighthouse, except you do this during your night phase. And the thing about the Lighthouse was, it was an action that gave you a plus action, so it's not like it was an action you could never play. Unless you drew it with Smithy or something like that, and then couldn't play the Lighthouse anyway. So I guess that is what makes this better than the Lighthouse, is because you can always play this during your night phase, at least. And another reason why this is better than Lighthouse is this is gained to your hand instead of your discard pile. So this is another night card you can actually play during your night phase after you buy it. So that's really cool. So that's the 2 costing cards. Alright, let's get on to the 3s. So what do we have for 3 costing cards in this expansion that we haven't gone over yet? Alright, let's see here. We got 4 more for the 3s. So the first one is the Night Watchman. And I actually like this one quite a bit. You look at the top 5 cards of your deck, discard any number, and put the rest back in any order. So that's kind of cool. I mean, you do this during your night phase, so you're not wasting an action card to do this, but you're strengthening your next hand, and you don't have to waste an action to do it. So that's why I like it so much. And then, once again, this is a night card that you'll gain to your hand instead of your discard pile. So you buy this, and then you can use it during your night phase. That's really cool. Really cool indeed. Then, we have the slums. At the start of your next turn, you get +1 card and +1 action. And then this is gained to your hand instead of your discard pile. So once again, another card gained to your hand instead of your discard pile. That's really cool. So you can buy this, and then you get to play it during your night phase. Pretty cool. And it gives you a card in action to start your next turn. That's very useful, especially a lot of the times. All right, then we have Changeling. Now, once again, a card that's not really realistic. But whenever I think of Changeling, I think of Odo from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He was a Changeling. And so this is what it reminds me of. Just a bit of nostalgia from one of my favorite Star Trek series. So, anyway, so I decided to keep it just because of pure nostalgia. So trash this, and then gain a copy of a card you have in play. In games using this, when you gain a card costing 3 or more, you may exchange it for a Changeling. So you trash this during your night phase, and then you can gain a copy of a card you have in play. It could be potentially useful. Maybe you have a gold in play, and it's hard to get golds. Alright, then you could trash this during your night phase and gain a gold, because you have one in play. Or some other action card. Maybe there's an action card that you've been having a hard time getting, or you just want more of them. And so this was a cheaper way of getting that action card, maybe a 5 costing card. So that's pretty cool. I like that aspect. And then, of course, in games using this, when you gain a card costing 3 or more, you may exchange it for a Changeling. So that part of it, I don't do too much. But it's kind of just an interesting way of saying that that's a Changeling. I like that. That's pretty cool. So basically, the cards you gain, if it's 3 or more, is basically going to turn into a Changeling. I have to say, that's pretty cool. Just like Odo from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. That's what I like. So, I think that's the main reason why I like it so much, because it just reminds me so much of a Changeling, just because of that reasoning. So, that's pretty cool. And that's why I kept it. Just pure nostalgia. Alright. Or like the Bridge Troll from Adventures. Kind of a nostalgia thing from my childhood. Alright, so Harlequin Dart Frog. So another card I replaced, again, mostly just because I replaced everything that said Hex with Forfeit. Not that there was anything wrong with a Leprechaun, other than the fact that it wasn't very down-to-earth in my eyes. Still, it was a card I decided to replace. Once again, not a card very down-to-earth, and I probably would have replaced Pixie too if it had said a Hex on it as well. But I decided, just to keep the Pixie and replace the Leprechaun just because of Hex itself. And so, the Harlequin Dart Frog kind of does remind me of a Leprechaun anyway. So, gain a gold. If you have exactly 7 cards in play, you gain a wish from its pile. Otherwise, receive a forfeit. So, kind of a wonky card. And you have to have exactly 7 to get that wish. Otherwise, you're gaining a forfeit too. But at least you gain a gold for your troubles. Is it worth it to receive a forfeit? Maybe. Maybe not. I guess it just depends on each person individually. But, yeah, another card I replaced as well. And obviously the slums, I replaced that one as well. And we will continue again in the next video. Well, actually, hold on. Maybe we can get some of these 4s out of the way. We still have a minute or two. Let's see if we can do some 4 costing cards. Alright. We'll do as many as we can get in the next minute. And we won't explain all these easily. So here's the Bard. You get 2 treasure. You receive a boon. The Conclave is definitely one of my favorite cards. You get +2 treasure. You may play an action card from your hand that you don't have a copy of in play. If you do, +1 action. I like that a lot. That is really cool. Alright, then we have the Blessed Village. It's Basic with the +1 card and 2 actions, basic. And then when you gain this, take a boon. Receive it now or at the start of your next turn. So that's pretty cool. Another interesting way of getting boons. I like that a lot too. And here's another 4-costing card we have. The Fox Den. Once again, another card I replaced. I replaced a card called Skulk, in fact. That's what I replaced. I replaced the card known as Skulk. Now, I didn't see anything wrong with Skulk. In fact, Skulk was very down to earth for sure. But when I thought about it, and since I know a lot about animals, what do you call a group of foxes? You're probably wondering now. You call them a skulk. So that's why I replaced it, because I'm like, hey, it's another way of adding an animal to the game. Fox Den. And it does the exact same thing Skulk did. You get a buy, each other player receives the next forfeit, and then when you buy this, you gain a gold. Awesome card for sure. Definitely awesome. So Fox Den, I just replaced it mostly because, like I said, that's what you call a group of foxes. You can call it a skulk. So the next time you see a fox, you can say it's skulking around for sure. So pretty cool. All right, let's continue off in the next video.